G'day, it's Matthew Pallett here again today, and today what I'm planning on discussing with you is the subject of what is architecture. Now when people think of architecture, it covers a broad range of subjects and topics, and people have difficulty coming to a decisive description about what actually is architecture. The simplest way to find out what architecture is just simply pick up a dictionary and look it up. That'll give you a very nice, neat, little concise picture about what architecture is. But in my mind, what's happening there is it's missing its soul, it's missing its purpose of what architecture is all about, and that is what I'm attempting to address today. Now, one of the difficulties with describing architecture is because it covers a broad range of topics, it is very difficult to come up with a concise description of what architecture is. But there are two descriptions that I particularly liked. The first one was architecture is frozen music, and the second one was architecture is three-dimensional art. Now when we look at, say, frozen music, we might think of, say, someone like Beethoven, or you might look at more contemporary music, say like INXS or Justin Bieber or whoever it is that you wanted to discuss, or you might think of art where when it says three-dimensional art, you might think of Claude Monet or Rembrandt or someone like that. Or you can go into the modern arts. Some of it I understand, some of it I completely scratch my head at trying to work out what's happening. But effectively, what I like about all this is that it puts architecture in the right category. In my mind, architecture is a subcategory of a much broader category of art. So before we can really discuss architecture, we really need to define what actually is art and how do we define that. And in my mind, as we've discussed when we're talking about music or we're talking about paintings, you could also talk about sculpture, and you could talk about a whole host of things that come under art. And a lot of these people is formally recognised. But there are other categories of art too. For instance, if you were to look under sport, you see the way that Shane Warne bowls a cricket ball. People say that it's very artful the way he bowls a cricket ball, or maybe Sir Donald Bradman, the way he batted, they said that was very artful. And you could also say Kelly Slater with the way he's surfing, or Usain Bolt with his running. So what is it that these sports people have in common with these other form of artists? And in reality, the best thing I can come up with is that it is something that's done with skill and purpose. So when we look at any form of art, and architecture is a subcategory of that, is that it has to be done with skill and purpose. Now, so then we look at architecture and we go, okay, well, does that overreaching description fit under architecture? Well, the trouble is it does and it doesn't. And the reason why I say it doesn't is because unlike other forms of art, architecture requires a formal qualification, a sheet of paper telling you that you're an architect. As I've stated previously, I'm just a draftsperson. I'm quite happy with that. Unfortunately though, no matter how skillfully or purposefully I design something, it will never be classified as architecture simply because I'm not an architect. Now conversely, we could talk about architects that have got that formal qualification, and architects, like any other form of profession or group of people, you have your good and your bad examples. So then you've got a bad example of an architect, and some of them I really scratch my head wondering how they actually managed to get the qualifications, but they can design something and quite rightfully they can call it architecture. And in my mind, while they might have sufficed the clinical description of architecture that you might find in a dictionary, in my mind it doesn't really match up to the soul of architecture, and that's really what I'm interested in and what I'm on about today. So then when we discuss, okay, well, let's look at some good examples of architecture, and there's plenty of examples of them out and about. And when we look at that, it sits you and makes you think. And one of the things, whether you like it or you don't like it, or whether you can scratch your head and go, look, I just don't understand it. A classic example is the Federation Square here in Melbourne. You get two groups. Some people say, yes, I love it, and other people just go, look, I just don't get it. And to me, that's fine. I can understand that. But you really have no doubt that the architect that did it, he had skill and he had purpose, especially when you look into it. So in my mind, architecture really needs to be defined as something that's skill and purpose. Unfortunately, it also has this other category on top of that, which is completely separate, which is that you also need the formal qualifications. So in reality, to be something to be properly architecturally designed, you've got to first have the architect, a guy that's got his formal qualifications, and then secondly, that architect has to provide skill and purpose no matter what he's designing, whether it's a building, whether it's a bridge, or whether it's a monument. It really needs to come under that sort of category. Thank you.